right, good morning, class. We're going to do our final review for Chapter 8. Remember, we are not covering the last two sections just because we're running out of time. The end of the year is coming upon us, and we've got to get a test in. So your test will be covering, excuse me, sections 8.1 through 8.6. All right, and I'm going to encourage you to take notes, draw diagrams. You might want to go ahead and have a picture of a coordinate plane. You might want to go ahead and have a number line drawn out in your notes that you can refer to, or draw them as we need them. But listen carefully, take notes, because you can have those sitting right beside you while you're taking your test. And I really encourage you to do that. All right. First, let's talk about understanding negative numbers. All right. A negative number is any number that's to the left of 0. Okay, that's a negative number. And we know that the further left a number is, the less value it has. The further right it goes, the greater its value. All right, and we've talked about a key word here, and that is our integer. Okay, what is an integer? Okay, it's the whole numbers and their opposites. All right. It will not include fractions. It will not include decimals. Integers are only going to be whole numbers and their opposites. All right, so if you had to write a positive or a negative integer that represents the situation, what would you write for the temperature as 6 degrees below 0? All right, you would write a -6, correct? And we know, or hopefully you understand, that the larger the number is beside the negative sign when we're talking about temperature, the colder it is. So if it was -6 degrees or -32 degrees, -32 degrees would be much colder than -6. All right, they're both ridiculously cold, but -32 is even colder. All right, so make sure you understand that concept. A person climbs 600 feet up a mountain. You're going up. So you're going above the surface of the earth. So that's going to be a positive 600. And we would include our labels, feet, degrees. All right. An airplane climbs to 37,500 feet. And again, your key word there is climbs. All right. And so you're going up. And remember, when we have a positive number, we don't have to put the plus sign in front of it. Okay. Everyone knows or understands that if there is a number without a sign in front of it, we are assuming it is a positive number. All right, let's talk about graphing a number and its opposite. I think this is really basic. I think most of you get this. That if I said put your point on -5 and its opposite would be +5. I want it to be the same number of spaces from 0. All right, so if I go 5 in one direction, I'm going to start at 0 and go 5 in the other direction. Don't only think of the opposite as negative, okay, because the opposite of a negative is a positive. So keep that in mind. So let's look at this down here. You be the teacher. Your friend describes the positive integers. Is your friend correct? Explain your reasoning. All right, and your friend says that the positive integers are 0, 1, 2, 3, so on, okay, ... Is your friend correct? How many of you said no? And did you know why they're not correct? What number did they include? They included a 0. 0 is neither positive nor negative. So that could not be a list of the positive integers. Positive integers start with 1. All right? Just a simple little thing that you need to remember. All right, when comparing integers, let's look at this. It says compare -3 and -1. So I've got my -3, I've got my -1. And here's what this person, they said, well, because 3 is greater than 1, so I guess -3 is greater than -1. Is their reasoning correct? No, this is not true, because -3 is further to the left on my number line. It is less than -1. So -3 is less than -1. All right, now look at the next one. What does it say? It says -7 and -3. So I have my -7, I have my -3. It says because -7 is to the left of -3 on a number line, -7 is less than -3. True or false? That's true. Here, I only owe $3 to somebody. Here, I owe them $7. So think about in terms of money. My debt is greater, I have less. All right, because I owe someone $7 instead of 3. All right, let's go ahead and do this real quick. Let's go ahead and put greater than, less than signs. I put a number line down there if you need to look at it. 3 and 0, which one's greater? Obviously 3 because it's to the right. It's further to the right. -1 and 4. -1 is less than 4. -2, 0. Right, -2 is less than 0. -7, -8. -7 is greater than -8. I owe someone $7 here. Here, I owe someone $8. So I have less money. I have a greater debt. Okay, 6, -6. 6 is greater than -6. -3, -2. -3 is less than -2. And if you come over to your number line, -3 is further to the left, so it's less value. All right, then we talked about finding absolute value, all right? And we know that these brackets that are around the numbers on this page represent absolute value. And anytime I see those, I must find the absolute value before I can compare them, before I can order them, before I can do anything. I've got to find that absolute value. And absolute value is how many places the number is from 0. Okay? Absolute value is always a positive number. Because when I'm counting how many places from 0, it doesn't matter I'm going to the right or the left. It's how many spaces it is from 0. So it will always be a positive number. So let's do these really quick. The absolute value of 23 is 23. The absolute value of -68 is 68. The absolute value of 1/6 is 1/6. The absolute value of -5/8 is 5/8. The absolute value of 1.026 is 1.026. The absolute value of -6.308 is 6.308. All right, always a positive answer. It's how many places it is from 0. All right, then we were talking about reflections, okay? And if we're just reflecting in one axis, if it helps you to diagram it, that's fine. Remember what a reflection is. It's a mirror image, all right? You don't have to plot the points, but if it helps you get a picture, then you are welcome to. So I'm going to do both, all right? And on this side, we're going to reflect everything in the x-axis. And on this side, we're going to reflect it in the y-axis. Okay, so let's do the x-axis first. If you're reflecting in the x-axis, that means you're going to go from top to bottom or from bottom to top. We're using the x-axis is kind of like our fold line. All right, so let's look at this. If I do -4, 4, I'm going to go across to -4, up to 4. Now, I want to reflect that. So what quadrant will I be reflecting it in? Quadrant 3. And what am I going to do? My x value stays the same. I change the sign in front of my y. So now I'm going to go, and I'm going to go to -4, and I'm going to go down to -4. If I folded my paper in half, would those match up? They would. I made a reflection in the x-axis. All right, so let's try 6, -2. I'm going to go across to 6. I'm going to go down to -2. Okay, to do my reflection, because I'm doing it in the x-axis, my x value stays the same. I change the sign in front of my y. So now I have 6, 2. Again, if I folded my paper in half using the x-axis as my fold line, my dots would line up, my points would line up, and I would have made a true mirror image or a reflection. Okay, let's do it in the y-axis now. Let me go ahead and just erase these points so that doesn't get confusing. All right, we're going to keep the same numbers, but we're going to do it in the y-axis. So this time, let's go ahead and plot this point, -4, 4. So I go over to -4, up to +4. Now, because I'm doing it, the y-axis runs vertically. So now I'm going to go from side to side. I'm going to fold my paper in half the long way. The y-axis is going to become my fold line. All right? So I'm going to keep my y the same because I'm in the y-axis. I change the sign in front of my x. So now I'm going to go over to +4 and up to 4. Did I make a mirror image? Sure I did. All right, let's do the same thing for the next one. We're going to do +6, -2. Now to change it, remember I'm changing it in the y-axis so my y stays the same, and I'm going to change the sign in front of my x. So now I'm going to go over to -6, -2, and I have made a reflection. If I folded my paper in half using the y-axis as my fold, I would have made a mirror image or a reflection at that point. Okay, now, if they ask us to do a reflection in both axes, what they mean is, in this case anyhow, we're going to do it first in the x and then in the y. Okay? That's what our directions will tell us right now. First in the x, then in the y. So I'm going to take my coordinates, -1, 7. Okay, if I'm going to change it into the x first, my x stays the same, and I change the sign in front of my y. Now I'm going to do it in the y. Now I'm going to use this, and that's the one I'm changing. So I come down, okay, now my y stays the same, and I change the sign in front of my x. So my final answer is 1, -7. Those are my coordinates. Okay? All right, let's erase, and let's do the next one. Let's practice doing that one. Let's see if you can do that one. So I would recommend you go ahead and write down 5, 9. Okay, all right, so we have our coordinates. Now, you're going to change it in the x, so what does that mean? The x stays the same. The sign in front of the y gets changed, so I go from a positive to a negative. Now use this and write your next set of coordinates for the y. Okay, how many of you got -5? -9. If you did it right. Your y stays the same. Your x, you change the sign in front of it. And this would be your final answer. Okay? All right, now polygons in the coordinate plane. All you're going to do is plot the points and connect the lines. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. A is 4, 7. So I go over to 4, up to 7, and my number line, I'm going to put the 7 is going to be right here. Now, don't forget to label it. A, 4, 7. Okay, B is 6, 2. So I go over to 6, up to 2, and I write B, 6, 2. My C is 0, 0. That means I stay right here at this point of origin. It's hard to see the dot there. Okay? So, I'm going to go ahead and write C. And I'm going to write 0, 0. Okay, now you have to connect your points if you're making a polygon. Right now I don't have a polygon. I have points that I have plotted. They recommend that you do them in number or letter order. So I'm going to connect A to B, B to C. Now to finish the shape, I have to go from C back to A to make this is a triangle, obviously. So I've made my polygon. Remember, a polygon is any shape made up of line segments. So it can't be a circle, and it has to be closed. So if you don't close it, you haven't made your polygon. All right, now we're finding distance, okay? And this is simple subtraction and addition problems. All right, so we're finding distance. And if you want to plot your point, you can. 3, 0, if I went over to 3 and 0, I'm on the x-axis. If I go over to 3 down to -2, I'm right here. Now here's what you're looking at. My 3's are the same. I'm going to find my numbers that are different. If you have a positive and a negative, okay, a positive and a negative, then I would just find the absolute value of each number. So the absolute value of 0 is 0. The absolute value of -2 is 2, and I would add them together. And since they didn't give us a unit, I would just write 2 units is my answer. Okay, let's look at the next one. We have -7, 8, and 7, 8. Okay, well, my 8's are both positive, so I'm going to get rid of those and not consider those. I'm going to consider the -7 and the -8. All right, and again, you're going to find the absolute value, 7. The absolute value of -7 is 7. The absolute value of 7 is 7. And because you have a negative and a positive, you're going to add them, and you're going to get 14 units. Okay, look at your last one. All right, you're not going to use the 5's because they're the same. I'm going to use the 10 and the 4, but they're both positive. They both, if I were to graph this out, they would both be in the same quadrant. So because they're both positive, I'm going to subtract. I'm going to subtract 10 minus 4, and I'm going to get 6 units. They would be in the same quadrant. If they're in the same quadrant, you subtract. If they're in different quadrants, you add. Same quadrants means the two numbers that are different are both positive or both negative. If they were both negative, I would have found their absolute value and subtracted. Okay? All right, guys, that's the review of what you're going to see on your test. I've given you a homework assignment that lines up beautifully and makes you practice every one of these concepts. Practice, practice. Remember, you can do a homework assignment up to 3 times. I would do it till I got it right, and then take your test. Okay, don't rush to take your test. I want to see good grades. You only get 1 attempt on a test. All right, come to help class if you need it. I will be offering help class next week. All right, thanks, guys.